A scion of many worlds. A good fight always starts with psychological warfare. If you can convince the other guy they have no chance, then they're either going to do something stupid and hand you the win, or they're going to give up. So setting his swords on fire and charging in with a trilling, eartheny scream of bloodlust is the first thing he does, and the last as the entire crowd shatters and scatters before he's even half finished. "Huh," he says as he touches down and lets the fire die out on his blades. He simply shrugs and sheathes the weapons before turning away. I suppose they got their fill for the night. I'm almost disappointed. Beryl is outright laughing as he walks back with a rueful shrug, and somehow he can make out the quadruple eye roll through Allur's helmet and faceplate. "Sorry?" "Yeah, you better be sorry, big moth boy. Hogging all the fun and scaring off all the idiots." Beryl gets out between some chuckles as she sheathes her falchion. Her laughs get under control as she turns around and calmly slithers back to the ship. "So, I have a question," Jasper says as he gets into casual speaking distance of Lady Allure. "I may have an answer," she replies, and he smirks. "Why was whore used as an insult? It can be won back on Earth, but it doesn't seem like it would fit as an insult in the wider galaxy. So it doesn't mean selfish, of low morals and deviant. I suppose it can, but it's mostly aimed at women with many sexual partners," Jasper replies. "Why would that be an insult?" "In the greater galaxy, I don't know, but the number of men and women are fairly well balanced on Earth, so looking beyond your partner is considered an act of treachery. Since it's far easier for women to commit such a treachery, the insult ended up gendered towards women." "How is it easier for them?" "Men pursue women on Earth. The man has to ask, but the woman gets the choice of saying yes or no. And if the man doesn't accept the answer, serious repercussions for the man. There are very, very few cultures that tolerate rape in any form," Jasper replies. "Even in prison, known rapists, especially those that target children, they need to be kept away from the other prisoners or they stand a good chance of being killed." "Really? Is it common on Earth?" Allure asks him in a haunted tone. "No, but it's regarded as so heinous that even if only 1 in a million people does so, then their name is still reviled by many." Jasper answers, and she nods after a time. "I see." "This conversation went somewhere awkward and uncomfortable in a hurry," Jasper remarks. "So have you had any interesting fights? I had an assassin at the shuttle. I was ambushed a few times in the tunnels and nearly cooked alive by a Hydro Nagasha, and there was the giant Jorgwa. You have any fun?" "There was an Erumenta adept who was shifting herself into a water state. It was strange, but she clearly didn't think about it too clearly. I hit her with a blast of wind from my wings even as she water shifted around my sword, and it both disrupted her concentration and reduced her to a smear of gore. It was rather disturbing, to be honest." "I can imagine. It's rare to fight someone with a sword and simultaneously keep the blade clean and reduce your opponent to little more than a puddle." Jasper notes before his neck hairs tingle and he focuses on his antenna. There it is, movement. "Don't look, but it appears someone's trying to be sneaky." "I see. Thank you for the warning. Many people seem to think that because my kind rarely put armor around our wings that they're somehow vulnerable, so they attack from behind, not realizing that the way our eyes are placed means we can see them coming unless they're extremely thin and swift." "Ha! Like trying to sneak up on an Earthani, you're just wasting your time. Or most Nagasha, they can sense heat," she replies, and he nods. "That reminds me, what do you know about the so-called True Empire? I understand they oppose the empire formed around the oldest Nagasha on the planet, but little beyond that." "Why? Look at this. It's in instructions in a cipher. Here's the cipher to figure it out yourself, but I can read it off for you." He offers, showing the letter and communicator. Lady Allure takes both and examines them. "Summarize them for me," she says as she translates it in her own mind. "The person I pulled it off of, Operative Scythe, was sent with a big box of weapons and instructions to make sure tonight's riots would happen. She was then to use the distraction to get control of the shuttle. She seems to have failed. Having one's face ripped off can put a damper in most plans. Any plans that don't involve severe masochism at any rate." Allure notes as she slowly scans through the letter. It doesn't say how big the container was or how many weapons were in it. No, it doesn't, which is just one of the concerning things about this. It certainly seems to come from the true Empire, but it could be a frame job, Lady Allure says, handing back both communicator and letter to him. "All she said was Queen's no, you cannot," when I woke up far too soon from her sonic attack. "A Foza?" "Yes, night black pelt, yellow markings." "That does sound like true Empire Foza, all right. Something to look into," Lady Allure remarks as she reaches up and unbuckles her helmet before pulling it off to let her braided hair fall down behind her. Her more human-placed eyes pinch shut and the eye further on the right side of her head looks at him warily. "You need to be very, very careful. The true Empire does not play about when it comes to getting rid of those it hates. We've had an absolute horror show of a time trying to catch them in the act, and when we do, they admit to being a singular actor. The whole world is trying to dance around your rules. Putting your foot down would make tonight look like a mild vacation, wouldn't it? Yes, it was a stalemate that was not going to break in any way that would have benefited us, but if your people are indeed coming, they are. It's just that this place is far off the beaten path," Jasper says, and she frowns in thought. "There is something like that in the archives, but it was... I may need to take a look at those, see what I can learn." "What?" "But they're sacred. They're a sacred treasure that would be nothing more than just a library to you," she says as she puts it together. Yes, it would be." "Then, no, there's just no point. It can take weeks for the Council to agree on such a thing. We protect the archive because it's the source of our knowledge and allows us to help Lacran and its people." Fair enough. It's not like I don't have a million things to do," he remarks, and she just stares at him for a moment. "It's rather odd for you to not see it as a great prize. I understand it's not for you, but I've spent so long helping to protect it I can hardly imagine it." "Do you think things might have been different if you tried to share the knowledge and not keep it secret?" We've tried so much, only to fail. The city-states grew proud and refused to come together. We tried to bring in psychology, and it splintered the sacred empire when people learned their god queen was merely a woman. Enhanced farming techniques turned a backwoods part of Miru into the gold lands, and they began demanding a fair due rather than feeding people. The mountain clans were taught metallurgy and advanced mining. We hoped they would start building, but instead they made weapons to hunt monsters. The Urthani tribes have been the only actual success with advanced weaving and dyeing to really advance their ability to make and sell silk. But the Urthani aren't players on this world. They're almost an afterthought in everything that happens. I know, it's absurd. We keep trying to uplift and things keep failing. Well, yes, I suppose it would. Uplifting isn't a one-and-done deed. It's a slow, difficult, and often unrewarding task, especially without the infrastructure to actually make things better, like advanced hydroponics or sturdier shelters. Although, all right, worst-case scenario, there's something about Lacran itself that makes it almost impossible for help to come from beyond. My promise of help on the way turns into a lie. We have what we need. We just need to use it properly, Jasper says, and she considers. Worst-case scenario? That's your worst case? You don't even consider dying? She demands, and he shrugs. Of course I do. But at this point, there's more than myself to worry about. He answers before nodding. Excuse me, I need to check on some people in the temple, as well as check my new stomach scar. Apparently, the fur's turned black. It takes about an hour to get the wounded and defenseless onto the shuttle, and Jasper opts to stay behind and keep things safe as the shuttle brings them all to one of the major temples on the mainland. The same one he woke up in, apparently. Wouldn't that be interesting? Actually, that would be interesting. I'll need to take a look myself, perhaps even examine the casket I was found in. Jasper muses out loud. He takes a breath as he thinks about such things. Still, things were going fairly well. Gilla was apparently on the mend, but still groggy. Furthermore, there are now 2 black spots in his fur, a matching pair of circles just to the right of where his belly button would be if he were mammal. It clearly shows he's been injured clean through the torso. But Earthany hatch from eggs into larvae, spend some time squirming around, and then spin cocoons to protect themselves. Older Earthany can still spin silk, but Jasper has no idea how. Something to ask the tribes about. It would be nice to have something he can use to tie someone up at will, or maybe just the ability to make a hammock or a pair of pants when he needs it. He had taken the time to get information about the true empire. It's ruled by a series of high queens, and they're all treated like the same person. The mantle seems to be something like a reincarnation of a spiritual leader coupled with an acting role for a single character over decades. Like a cross between James Bond and the Dalai Lama. It jumps species, it jumps nationalities at times, but almost always when a new high queen is crowned, she's some vulnerable young child who is then quickly groomed into a hateful and spiteful bitch of a woman. The current one is middle-aged, but with the sheer failure he just handed her agents, she might be killed and a new one brought in for good luck. If that bit of madness happens, well, he's raising one royal brat. He can raise another. Hell, it might even work out well. In the optics game, if they want something holy and sacred, then he can play the bronze bull for a while. Jasper pauses at that thought and muses where the idea came from. Then he remembers. The bull worshipped by the Jews while Moses was on the mountain. Why is he remembering that better? He never really studied in Sunday school. Or rather, Horace never did. So why is that popping up? He needs to pay attention to his mind. But this time, it seems like it's just him. Are these flashes of knowledge just a result of the axiom going through his brain and increasing its power, or is it something else? His brain is physically different after all, more primed for longer life and therefore clearer memory. It would be very ironic if he remembered more of Horace's childhood than Horace, which reminds him once more. Something he has to do, and the sooner, the better. That voice and presence needs to be addressed. He can't afford an existential crisis, so instead he's going to get some existential answers. He sets up a patrol route, finds a place to sit down, and tells them to tug his antenna if they need his attention. He sits in a lotus position and locks his hand claws with his foot claws and leans forward as he pulls in axiom and sends his focus inwards, into memory and into the elsewhere that he uses to communicate. But he connects to no one, aiming instead at the memory of the lesson, at the voice he heard that woke him, at the presence that clawed at his mind. You have the subtle elegance of meteoric impact, it says in his own voice in a tone halfway between awe and exasperation.